Today, we're going to be reviewing and taking a look at the Big Beard batteries. I've had a lot of requests to review this battery because it does a handful of things different. It's more compact, it's cheaper than Battleborn, it has a very high capacity, high output, and features that we're not seeing in all the other batteries. There are a few things that make this stand apart, so let's take a look at it and see how it lines up and what it means for RVers. Okay, to start off, one of my big impressions with this is just the ratio between the physical size of it and the capacity that it has. So right here, you're looking at 900 amp hours of a battery bank, 12-volt system. So that's a tremendous amount of power in a small space, and I didn't fully grasp it when I was talking to Todd. Full disclosure, I'm friends with Todd. He is the creator and owner of Big Beard Batteries. I was talking to him on the phone, and I had 3 Lion Energy batteries here. It was about a 300 amp hour system, and he said, in that same area that you already have designated for your batteries, we can stick 900 amp hours. So from 300 amp hours to 900 amp hours. I thought he was off on his calculations, but here it is, 900 amp hours. I think it might be helpful to do a little bit of comparison. Let's do a mock-up of what the traditional Battleborn 100 amp hour battery that you can still get for just under $1,000, what that would look like if we were to have that battery bank of 900 amp hours sitting in here in its place. So this is a mock-up of your 100 amp hour Battleborn battery. So the one that still sells for just under $1,000. Obviously, it would go in a little bit easier because they're going in as individual pieces, but this gives you a representation of how big that battery bank would be, taking up the footprint in here. But they do have the game changer now that is more dense with less space, so let's do that one real quick. Okay, so this is definitely going to be closer. It's going to be about 90 amp hours short of what we have in there. But my problem is that I couldn't even fully get the 3 batteries of those in because of how much bigger they are. I can't get them into the door. Yes, I do have a little bit more room with the wires, but I would still have to build a platform in here to elevate it in order to get this in there. And so you can see that it's significantly bigger than what we have there. So while that is really impressive, because this is one of the smallest batteries in physical size for the capacity that it has, I do know that not all batteries are a one-size-fits-all for everybody out there. And I've been trying to test as many batteries as I can because I've built a battery buyer's guide, because there's a lot of contributing factors of why you might pick a battery, what you're looking for, what your needs are, and what your limitations are. And so in that battery buyer's guide, I've tried to break down a lot of things from features to output to physical size to what's it cost per watt hour for each of the individual batteries. And that should help you narrow it down to what works for you and your situation. It should be a very valuable resource to use. There'll also be a link down in the description to these batteries, of course. Now, a question that I ask when I'm looking at a battery is, what's different about this battery? What makes this battery stand out? So there's 3 obvious things just by looking at this battery that we can find out. Number 1, if we look on the side, it has active balance. And that is definitely different than everything else that we see in the battery RVing space. What we typically see in an RV battery is usually a passive balance or a top balance. So it has to charge the battery all the way up to make sure that each of those individual cells in there are balanced together. This one has active balancing. So if one gets higher than another one, it can take the charge that's in this higher cell and charge that lower cell and balance out the battery. Another thing that is different on this that's really evident is it has a button right here on top. You don't see that on every battery. So this battery, if you're putting it in storage, you can turn it off. I also turned it off when I was installing them. It just made it easier to be able to do the install, not having to worry about arcing or making some kind of connection between the positive and negative. Yes, I was careful and I didn't do that anyways. It's good practices, but it was nice just being able to turn off the battery, not having any voltage across these, and to be able to install them and work on them. Now, this isn't the only battery that can go to sleep when you're putting it into storage. We have that with the SOK battery. It puts itself in a storage mode or goes to sleep if you're not using it for about 24 hours. The thing I didn't like about that is when you went to go wake it up, you had to apply a voltage to it in order to wake it up. So put a charger on it. The thing is, not all chargers will just apply a voltage if it doesn't see voltage already there. So you need an additional power supply to be able to wake that up. On here, we just press the button, wake the battery up, and use it. So nice to have that button feature on there. The other thing that's really obvious is just how thick these terminals are on here. This has to be some of the beefiest terminals that I've seen on a battery for RVing. It's nice that they're that stout because the BMS, this battery, is capable of putting out 200 amps continuous. So what does that mean? That means that we only need one battery to be able to run an AC on the RV. Quick demonstration, because we can turn these batteries off individually. So we just have one battery on, and then let's turn on the AC through the inverter. Okay, so here we go, one battery running the AC. We can pull it up in the app and we can see the different stats of what it's pulling. We're not even getting close to maxing out the battery. It's pulling 152 amps, 150 amps. Starting to go up 155, floating around in that area. So this isn't how I would recommend setting your system up, but impressive that it's capable of running the AC continuously with just one battery. Let me turn all this off and then we'll have a little conversation about the app and a couple other features. Okay, now before we move on, because this is the question that comes up all the time, is how long can you run your AC on these batteries? And so it really can depend on a lot of different variables, but here's a case that we had with these batteries. We were down in Florida. The high that day was around 93. It was mostly sunny. There were some clouds in the sky, so not full sun all the time. We have 1,000 watts of solar on the roof, and after about 7.5 to 8 hours, we were still at 80% on the batteries, and that was with keeping the inside of the RV at 74 degrees. We were trying to run the AC at night. I imagine we could probably get 8-9 hours out of this battery bank, depending on what else we had running, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how long we could run the AC. Now, moving forward, we did see that it has Bluetooth in there, and so Bluetooth is nice to have on the batteries. I don't use it all that often. We have a battery monitor on there that gives us the status of the entire bank, and that's what I use almost all the time, but Bluetooth can come in handy for two scenarios that I like it for. Number one, troubleshooting. We had a friend that had a battery go down, not these specific batteries, but a Battleborn battery go down in a bank, and they had to take their entire system apart in order to find out which battery was bad. If you have Bluetooth in the batteries, it can kind of help do some of that troubleshooting process and make it a lot easier. Number two, these do have internal heaters, so it has low and high temperature protection, but in a cold case scenario where you need to heat those batteries in order to charge them, it has the heaters inside, and that is where I do like Bluetooth. Those heaters do get engaged automatically because the temperature is too low. Then I like to be able to pull it up in Bluetooth and see what that heater is actually doing, see what's happening to the inside of that battery. So those are really the only two case scenarios that I like having Bluetooth. There is some great information in the Bluetooth app, but most of the time I'm just looking at the battery bank and how it's working for the system. So nice to have, but I hardly ever use it. And in this case scenario where we have the batteries in this bay, I've never actually needed the heaters to kick in on batteries. I have in other scenarios where they're a bit more exposed, but inside this bay, I haven't had them, and we've been down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty cold. These also have an 11-year warranty, and so a lot of that is broken down in that battery buyer's guide, because there's a lot of things, like I said, that go into selecting the battery that works for you. For instance, you could find another 300 amp hour battery, but what is the continuous out? So how many of those would you need? Oftentimes you'll find that it's only 100 amps out. Now, a huge consideration is what is the cost of the battery. So this one comes in at $2,000. So I think that puts it around 52 cents a watt hour. So on that buyer's guide, it's broken down by how much per watt hour, because when you're comparing a game changer that's 270 amp hours compared to a 300 amp hour, how does that really shake down and where is it at? So this one's sitting kind of right in the middle of the market. Definitely less than a Battleborn, but kind of right there in the middle of the market. For an American company battery with advanced features, small footprint, and a high capacity, and that's what you're looking at right here. So again, links down in the description to the buyer's guide and to this battery, but that's kind of what makes this stand out, what is kind of notable with this battery. So I think that's going to do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope that it helped you out in some way, knowing what this battery is all about. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.